son, my daughter, and my wife back home. Just leave me alone. I hate talking on the phone. I think you all know I ain't doing nothing illegal. I'm just keeping it cool, like a nighttime eagle.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with musicians about songwriting and the creative process. Our guest on today's episode is Kentucky-based musician and songwriter Jeremy Pinnell. I am here in the Tell You What studios, and I am joined by the executive producer of the podcast, so I better not screw this up. How are we doing so far?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. All right. We'll try and keep that up. So it's been a little while since we released our last episode here, but we haven't been slacking. We now have a handful of episodes ready to go, done some great interviews lately, and we'll be releasing them over the next few weeks and months. I've also just returned from a fun week in Nashville at the Americana Fest. Recorded a great episode there with some amazing young artists, Vivian and Riley. That episode will be out in a couple of months, I think. And I also heard a lot of great new music. I was able to see live shows for the first time from a few artists that we've had here on the show during quarantine, but I've never been able to see them perform live before, including, who did we see? Anna Tivol, Arlo McKinley, Katie Pruitt, Rachel Bayman. It was great to complete the circle on those, and their shows did not disappoint.
Lucky.
Yes, I said we. It was actually I that went to those shows. So those of you who listened to our episode earlier this year with Arlo McKinley, which I presume is all of you, correct? At least everyone in this room?
I did.
All right, good. You may remember Arlo talking about his early years, making friends with a guy named Jeremy Pinnell. And how Arlo said he really learned how to write a song by watching and recording with Jeremy. Here in this episode, Jeremy remembers meeting this guy named Arlo McKinley and being amazed at his singing and learning from Arlo how to use his voice. I found it interesting to hear about how great musicians find each other at early ages. Arlo and Jeremy were in their late teens, just figuring things out. When they met each other, each recognized the talent of the other. You might call it wonderful happenstance that the members of the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, for example, found each other when they were quite young. But it took more than luck for these young artists to recognize what they saw and know that they wanted to connect and work with each other. Arlo and Jeremy found that in each other, and they've remained musical friends to this day, 20 or so years later. So Jeremy's released a new record, his third studio album, called Goodbye LA. It is a great sounding record. Jeremy tells us how he wanted to make a record that sounded happy, that made people happy. But the themes here are still thoughtful. Several of the songs are reflections on the conflict facing touring musicians as they try to pursue their craft and their calling, while trying to balance the rest of their lives as they get older: family, relationships, home, stability. I do want to point out one of the things I found fascinating in this talk. Jeremy's discussing his songwriting process. You know, does he use the guitar? Is he using phone memos? Is he writing things down? It comes out that he has written several songs, start to finish, without picking up his guitar or writing anything down.
Stop.
It's interesting, isn't it? Somehow he keeps the whole thing in his head. Melody, chorus, verses, chords, all of it in his head to completion. Then he goes about recording it or writing it down. Kind of amazing. I don't think I could do that. So give this record of Jeremy's, Goodbye LA, some spins. Hopefully it makes you feel happy. And look for him out on the road. He's excited to get back out there. And evidently, I've committed to showing some dance moves when he plays up this way. I have some pretty good moves, don't I?
Well, you have moves.
I have moves. All right, we've determined that. Quick shout out to Allison Mahal at IVPR for helping us put this discussion together. Really appreciate it. So let's get to it. Here's our Tell You What discussion with Jeremy Pinnell.
And you all know I ain't doing nothing illegal. I'm just keeping it cool, like a nighttime eagle.
All right, Jeremy Pinnell, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thanks so much for making the time for this.
Thank you.
You are talking to us from your home in Kentucky, you just told me, is that right?
I am, Southgate, Kentucky.
Great. your new record, Goodbye LA, comes out in a few weeks. I imagine you're looking forward to finally getting those songs out into the world.
Yeah, I am. I'm curious to see what people think. It's weird because I was just thinking about this today. Like you kind of like introduce new songs like into the world, and you don't like nothing really happens, you know. And it's kind of strange that that's like the way it is, right? I mean, just putting out a whole record, 10 songs that you're really proud of, and then people pay attention to it for a month or a month and a half, you know, and they don't see all the work you put behind it. So I'm kind of curious to see how this record does, you know.
Yeah. Have you been out there playing these songs live for a while now, or?
We were playing them about a year and a half ago because we were just kind of trying to get studio ready, you know. So right before the pandemic and leading up to the pandemic, we were playing them out live just so we could be studio ready, and then after we recorded the record, we kind of put the hush on them, and then kind of just hung back, you know. We played a few of them, but not too many, you know.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun to get out there and really play all the songs again live too.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous to play these songs with the band because we haven't. I mean, we're going to get some rehearsals in this month, but our release show is October 8th in Newport, Kentucky, and we haven't played these songs since March of 2020. So,
wow,
yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Yeah, thanks.
That's what you do.
Thanks for your confidence. Yeah.
All right, let's go back in time a little bit. You were raised in Kentucky. Do I have that right?
I was. Yep.
Yeah. Can we talk about your early days a little bit? Your like childhood musical memories. Maybe how some of the music that you remember from those days in your home or your community has made its way into what you're creating now.
So I grew up in northern Kentucky, and originally I was born in Cincinnati and lived in Madisonville, which is right by Norwood, which is right where Arlo McKinley's from.
Yeah.
And we moved over here when I was 7 years old. And it was, I don't know if my parents moved over here because of church they wanted to attend. And, you know, church is a big thing in our area. And and so I grew up, you know, seeing my dad play music in church. He was a great singer. He is a great singer, and he was a bass player. And so I grew up watching him every Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday in church playing music, you know. And that's kind of where you learn how to sing, through church songs and hymns and clapping and keeping rhythm. So it was a musical education, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So, and was your dad a musical influence in other ways outside the church as well?
Yeah, he was. So we would have family get-togethers, and then we would have friends come over and whatever, and he would, you know, play some, like, I'd get to hear like Crosby, Stills, Nash, and I'd get to hear some Beatles songs, and so I get to hear a little bit. But we grew up in a pretty religious home, and we didn't listen to much secular music at the time growing up, you know.
Yeah. So when did you first pick up a guitar?
My dad had this Ovation roundback, because I think at the time that was a thing, right? Everybody played them. I think Neil Diamond, that was like his go-to guitar, and everybody did kung fu. So there was like kung fu and Ovation guitars, I guess, from what I remember. You know.
Do you think those things are related?
I'm just thinking about them right now, and it's funny putting the pieces together. You know. Yeah. So I told my dad I wanted a guitar. And he said, "Well, play this guitar, and if I see you want to learn, then I'll buy you an electric guitar." So, you know, I just practiced on that for a long time, just learning basic chords. He showed me some basic chords, and then finally, you know, I don't know how long later, you know, my memory is not very good at all, but he bought me a little electric guitar. It was a Cort electric guitar with a Gorilla amplifier, and
Yeah.
I just went in and turned it up to 10 and figured out how to turn the distortion on, and so I was around 13 years old, I think, maybe.
Yeah. But you'd been singing for a long time. Would you consider voice your first instrument then?
Yeah, without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because to this day, I'm not much of a guitar player. I like singing more than I like playing the guitar,
So did you maybe consider the guitar something just to accompany yourself with then?
For sure. I never use the guitar. When I play guitar, I always lead with the vocal. Like if it's just me and the acoustic guitar, yeah, I use it as a way of getting across what I'm trying to say, or with some kind of emotion through my voice,
Yeah. So when did you start? Were you playing with other people when you were like in high school? Were you part of bands, or were you always kind of doing your own thing?
Yeah, I joined some smaller bands. You're a young kid. You grew up in church, so when you get a little bit older, 16, 17, you get to smoke a little grass, and then you get to like find out about punk rock music, and then by the time you're 17, at least in my case, I was out the door,
Yeah.
and stumbled into the world of punk rock, and at that time, growing up in the church and being restricted like that, you just go full throttle, and anything against any kind of authority, religion, whatever it is, And
Yeah.
I think 18, 19, I started to cool down a little bit and kind of switch gears. I heard a Palace music record when I was 18. We had got a bus ticket up to New York. I had $30 in my pocket, and we were just going to live on the street. And we went up there, and we had a friend that lived there from Kentucky, and we stayed with him, and he let me hear a Palace music record, and it changed my life. I was like, oh, I want to do this, and then it quickly escalated into like, Johnny Paycheck's greatest hits.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to stop you. I don't think I'm familiar with Palace music.
Oh, really? There's a guy
Yeah.
named Will Oldham. Yeah, he originally it was Palace music, and then
Okay.
and then he's Bonnie Prince Billy. Now, if you're familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I found Whiskey Town, with Ryan Adams and Sun Volt, Uncle Tupelo, and you just
All
kind of
right.
just,
So you moved past the punk stage pretty quickly there.
Yeah, I mean, I found something like really honest, but it was a
Yeah.
little more laid back, and I'm a laid back dude,
Well, you found some good songwriting too, Uncle Tupelo and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Jay Farrar, I've always been a huge fan of Jay Farrar. So that was about 25 years ago, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of
So when did you start writing songs then?
it wasn't. I was 18, 19 writing songs, and I ran into Arlo. We went to see a band. There was a band called Snake Fixer, and they were from Kentucky, and they were playing in.
This is Arlo McKinley we're talking about again.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and I had been in the studio recording some alternative country stuff, and I let Arlo hear it, and then we became fast friends. He really liked what I was doing, and that he was such a great singer that me and him just kind of like fit together, and we started a folk group called the Great Depression, and and if you dig deep enough, you'll find that on the internet. And
I'm going to do that.
yeah, and I was just kind of writing, struggling with like the idea of like kind of exiting church and that kind of life, so I still dealt with a lot of that conviction, and a lot of that guilt that comes along with religion was kind of like transferred over, and songwriting was a way to get maybe a little relief from that, you know?
Yeah. You are not the first guest I've had who has said similar things about their background and how songwriting was their way to kind of process their way, that their life kind of opened up. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So when you moved to New York and you did this and you're with Arlo, is this when you're starting to think, hey, maybe I could make some money by doing this and maybe make a career out of this?
No, I didn't move to New York. I headed back shortly after I heard that Palace Music record.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had New York was tough on an 18-year-old with $30 in his pocket, you know.
Does not sound like a solid plan, I guess, say that.
No, but you get some experience, you know.
Yes.
I remember getting off the bus and there was a lady using the restroom on the sidewalk, and the cops just yelled at her and told her she had to go use the sidewalk down the street. And I was like, oh, okay, this is New York, you know. And I didn't really think anything about money for years later.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of even playing music full time really didn't happen till like 3 years ago, you know.
Okay. Wow. But you were playing gigs back then when you were a young person, though.
We were making records and playing gigs, and we had some opportunities, but we were young, you know, and young people do young people things, and you know, I mean, you know the story probably, you know.
I've heard some stories. We don't need to get into it. We can talk about your process a little bit now if you want to.
Sure.
I'm sure there's not one way your songs come to life, but would you say you have a lyrical idea or theme first, then you pick up the guitar? Are you sitting with the guitar in your hands generally when the songs come to life?
Yeah, I usually like hear something or mistakenly say something, and it'll kind of catch my attention, you know. I heard a woman say about a year ago, she was talking about being sick, and she said there was buzzards on the bedpost, and I was like, man, that is like powerful, right? And and you hear things like that along the way, and you just hang on to them, you know, maybe use them later. So yeah, usually I come up with something like that, and then I'll come up with a melody or something, and then it'll go from there.
Yeah. Are you writing these things down or put them in your phone or something when you get these ideas?
Sometimes, but the ones that you put in your phone don't seem to stick. The ideas that you hang on to mentally, like, you know, just by remembering, like, those seem to stick, you know. I go through my phone and I look through all my notes and voice memos, and I'm like, man, that's garbage, you know.
If it's good enough for you to remember it, then it's good enough to put in a song, and if you don't remember it, then maybe not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you try to have like dedicated time when you write? Like, I'm going to sit down for an hour or two now and see what I come up with? Or is it more like you had an inspiration and then you grab the guitar and maybe something happens?
Yeah, I don't force it. I don't sit down and with the guitar. I hardly ever sit down with my guitar. I'd probably be a lot better if I did, you know. And but I'm a huge fan of like going and like living life. And then when you go experience life, you can make good art, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're just sitting down writing about things that you don't know about or other people, I mean, there's time for that, and there's artists that do that, and they make great music. But for me personally, I have to go out and experience some things before I can sit down, and that'll always come. Music will always come. I just need to like be patient, you know. So I don't force it.
Yeah, I was going to get to this later, but you took us there. From what I can tell, your songs all seem to come from like a place of personal truth, right? Inspired by things in your life or reflections on your life, things you think are important, as opposed to talking about someone else's story or something like that. So you've started to talk about this already, but have you thought about this like, this is what works for me as a songwriter? I tried this other thing about writing about other people, and this is what I'm good at, or is it just the way you've always done it?
I just always feel like I can connect with the listener a lot better when I'm being honest about something maybe that they don't want to be honest about. But, you know, if you can do that through your music, then they're like, oh, I identify with that also, you know. And it's just really just about human defects or something along those lines that connect you with another human being, you know. So,
yep. So you say you get one of these ideas, do you tend to stick with one song and try and work your way through it, or do you end up with pieces of this song, pieces of that, and then come back to them and try and figure out what's going to become a song?
yeah, I'm a little I get a little insane when it comes to that. Like once I start writing, I'll just have to finish it, you know? Like whether it be the next day or it'll be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or, you know, 2 or 3 days, I'll just keep going over it in my head and, you know, trying to get it all together. And then I'll sit down with my guitar at some point and put some music to it, you know?
So you will go through the process of writing the lyrics and have a melody and get pretty far before you even pick up the guitar.
Yeah, I'll normally like on our 2017 record, Ties of Blood and Affection, there's the song on there called Feel This Right. And so like with you got the, you know, I don't know if I might have came up with the chorus first, but then you have a simple like 1, 4, 5 like verse, and it's just real simple, like some call them teardrops, I call it pain. And then you get that first verse and you know how that's going to go, so you don't need the guitar anymore. You can just go to work, and then you can remember that the way you sang it, and then you just remember the melody, and then you start trying different things out, you know. And so you don't need a pen and a paper. You just need to go out and go to work.
So you don't have a guitar or a pen or a paper when you're writing these songs?
Some of them, yeah. I mean, some of them I sit down with a guitar, but I like doing that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the personal aspect of your songs. Since your songs are so personal, I know you haven't been touring, but you have spent your life kind of touring. How does it feel to sing these personal stories night after night? Does your emotional relationship to them change over time?
Yeah, I think you figure out different ways to enjoy the songs, you know, because you grow as a human being, and you have to, as a musician, you have to constantly recreate yourself and recreate the song. And if you're playing it every night, it can get in kind of a rhythm, you know, to where you're just like, okay, we know the next song, let's go through it. But there's also a lot of power in that, you know, being with a group of guys. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, like me and the guys I play music with, like you just make real friends, you know? And when you're in a strange place, and sometimes it's dangerous, sometimes it's not, but you experience all these things together, and then you're on stage every night making music together. It's a powerful thing.
Yep. All right, let's talk about your new record, Goodbye L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Musically, this seems like a bit of a progression for you, maybe more of a rockin' vibe than your previous records. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, I would.
Why do you think you chose to go down this path?
So I met a guy I play music with now, a guy named Junior Tutwiler. He's a guitar player on that record. And I met him a couple years ago through a manager I had in Nashville, a guy named Terry Rickards. And Junior's originally from State College, and he came down to Nashville, and I met him the first night he moved to Nashville. And then I think it was a month later we got to hook up and play some music. But he's just such an incredible guitar player and musician. And I've always listened to like country music and rock music, but he was really into blues music, and it really got me looking at the blues side of country music. And so when I wrote this record, I had Junior playing the guitar. He was just as much as the songs were. You know what I'm saying? Like I wrote that record with him in mind, you know? So
he wasn't actually writing the songs with you, but he was in your head, kind of.
Yeah, so I was writing the songs, and we were putting them together while we were traveling, you know?
Yeah. So as you're writing these songs, you were already thinking about the kind of sound this record's going to have.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to go for. I wanted to make a record that made people happy. I wanted to make an upbeat record. I was tired of all the sad boy music, and I wanted people to be happy. So I had in mind. There's a Waylon record from the '80s called "The Entertainer." It's got like "Never Could Toe the Mark" on it. It's got "Sparkly Brown Eyes." It's got the people up in Texas. And I thought of like that record, and I thought of like that ZZ Top record has like legs on it, and
Yep.
like that kind of. I wanted to have a good time, and so that's where this record kind of came from, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about one of the songs that I think kind of goes to what you're talking about. "Big Old Good," right?
Yeah.
This is a good example, I think, of this direction. It's got that kind of boogie feel to it, a little bit of that ZZ Top thing you were talking about, right? Can you talk about how this one came together?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking of like kind of rock and roll with that song, and a little bit of Confederate Railroad too, you know, like that 80s country, 90s country kind of feel when it comes into the chorus, you know. And but yeah, we were on tour. We were in North Carolina, I think, and we were heading to play a gig, and we went past a corn dog restaurant, and I said, "Oh, I guess we're on Corn Dog Mountain," you know, just being funny, and and that's kind of like the beginning of that song. I was just thinking about how carefree my lifestyle was, you know, and I have a 6-year-old at home, and I had a 20-year-old at home, and I had my wife at home, and that's kind of like the spark of that song, you know, and then
Yeah.
it turned into that.
Corn Dog Mountain.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Mama's making house, baby needs a toy, and I'm screaming through the mountains like some old playboy. I got shaky knees, sweating hands, trying to figure out how to be a man, and I never did anything that I should, and everybody knows I've been up to no good. I've been back 'cause my baby found a good fishing hole. I'm getting high on that rocky road.
You talked about going out, being with your band, and what that means to you. I want to talk a little bit more about live performance. What do you think is important to a good live show? What are you trying to bring to the audience when you're out there?
I always want to bring the audience to us. Like, I never want to feel overpowering or forced on anybody, you know? And I think a lot of people, a lot of musicians struggle with that. But if you're good, people are going to listen to you. And, I mean, all shows are different. Depending on where you are in the United States, all shows are different. If you're down in Texas, people are going to dance. Because that's what people do in Texas. They love music down there. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you're in the Midwest or you're up on the Northeast, I mean, people don't dance. They get drunk and they might get violent, or you just never know.
Hey, I'm up in the Midwest. I occasionally dance. I just want to say that for the record.
Okay, well, we'll see. Next time I see you, you're gonna have to show me. But
I got some moves, let me tell you.
yeah, I bet. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like, it's always different.
Yeah. Let's talk about the song "Want to Do Something."
Okay.
To me, this song lays out the dilemma that comes up in other ways in some of your other songs. This conflict of pursuing your calling in music, living this road life, which is a hard life, but you can't get away from it, right? I imagine this is something you've wrestled with over time.
Yep.
So can you talk about this song in terms of that conflict in your life?
Sure. Yeah, it's I think any musician or artist or anybody that has a passion for something, they know what I'm talking about. Like I would always try to just work a straight job. I always wanted to do that, right? Just have a comfortable life. Like, go to work, come home, have dinner. Like, let's not make a big deal of it. And but it's never been that way for me. It's always, I don't know if I want to stir up trouble or if I want to, I don't know what it is, but like the thing we were talking about with songwriting, like your head just starts going. And it's not anything it's not like I think like, oh, I need to write a new song. No, it's just your head just talking to you. And yeah, so it's an ongoing battle.
Yeah. The irony of having written some songs on this record about the conflicts of life as a touring musician, life on the road, and then being stuck at home for 18 months is kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Because before the pandemic, I think it was 2019, I told my wife, I was like, I don't want to be 45 years old riding around in a van. I don't want to do it.
Right.
And then now that it's almost 2022, and that's all I want to do, So,
Get back out there.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it wears on you, dude. But whatever.
I believe it.
Wanna do something else, baby, but my mind keeps saying I can't. I just wanna have a good time, let my baby show me how she dance. She's taking me for the longest ride, Lord, I feel like I just wanna die. I wanna do something else, baby, but I can't, and I don't know why.
I understand you mentioned a kung fu before, but I understand you practice martial arts, jiu-jitsu. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the beginning of the pandemic hit, and everybody's just trying to figure out what they want to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm 42 years old. I've never learned how to fight. You always get beat up or get in some street brawl or something growing up, but you don't really know how to fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's always been one of those things that's just been on me. And so I was like, you know what? Since I'm not doing anything else, I'm going to learn how to fight. And I'm super green to the martial arts world. I've always been a fan of boxing and martial arts, but I never I'm just kind of scratching the surface. But when you start to get involved in that world, you see how much heart and how much generosity and how much kindness and is shown in the martial arts world, and it's a powerful thing. When you're engaging in physical combat with people for a year and a half, almost 2 years, you really see the good side of people, and it just comes from such an honest and pure place, and that's why it's made such a big difference in my life, you know. So
Yeah. Do you bring some of that then back to your music and your songwriting, do you think?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember training one day, and I got to go to an afternoon class, and I rolled with the guy at the end of the class, and we went hard. And I remember just being so tired when I left, and just so worn down. And I went downstairs to eat eat after I was done training, and I was watching a fight on the TV, and it was just these two women just going at it, and they were going hard. I just got so emotional, you know, just like, I don't know what it was. I was just overwhelmed with emotion. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, when you experience that, it just circles right back into music, you know? Like, it's art, martial arts, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
it's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah. Let's get back to some of these songs. I want to talk about the song Red Roses. This is the one that kind of stopped me in my tracks. Your vocal performance here is so great. It really brings out the emotion in the lyrics so wonderfully, not just in like the beautiful melody lines in the chorus, but the phrasing choices you make throughout the song I found really great. Can you talk about this one maybe in terms of thinking about how you use your voice and vocal delivery to convey the spirit or emotion of this song?
Yeah, the song wasn't really. I had the guitar idea like months before. I think we were backstage somewhere, and I was just kind of playing that first few chords on the guitar. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then just one night, for some reason, my son and my wife were downstairs, and I just grabbed my guitar and came up here to the kitchen table I'm sitting at right now, and the song was done in like 5-10 minutes, you know. And I don't know, it came out of a place of just, things are tough, man. Things get tough when you're traveling and being away from home. Things get tough, you know. So it was just a song that came out of just, you know, of what was going on at the time. Yeah, there was nothing fancy about that song. It's just what it was, you know.
So when you're choosing the way that you sing a song like this, are you making choices about your vocal delivery or phrasing, or is that just what comes out of you? Because it works so well.
No, I pick it, like, of course I'm picky about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe the second verse is blue skies and it's raining, but we don't ever see the light. It seems like every day we're praying that we'll just get along tonight. And, like, of course when I come up with that line, I'm figuring out how to sing it, cut it off, you know, all that. Edit it.
Yeah. Well, it works so well. It's great.
Thank you.
Blue skies and it's raining. We don't ever see the light. Seems like every day we're praying that you and I will just get along tonight. And the roses on his grave as they used to be, but they are in my memory.
Let's talk about Goodbye L.A., the title track. This is a really well-crafted song. I like how you're kind of using the city of L.A., and what it represents, as a metaphor for the decisions you make about your career, right, in your life. I was particularly struck by the line in the chorus, L.A., you got some pretty ladies, but they don't want babies, and I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is really like direct and honest language. It kind of hits you dead on. I think I read that you were a fan of Billy Joe Shaver. Do I have that right?
I am.
Yeah. This lyric kind of reminds me of something he might have written, kind of just that straight-ahead, honest lyric. have you been maybe inspired by him in terms of lyrical style, do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%. One of my favorite lines he wrote, I think it's Omaha. You've been, what does he say? I'm turning all the roads I've walked around the other way. I'm coming back to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, who writes like that? Who figures out a way to say, I'm returning home, and then just says that so beautifully, you know? And I don't know. Yeah, he's one of the greatest.
Yeah. Can you talk about this song, Goodbye L.A., and how this one came about?
Yeah, this is, we were in L.A., and we were going to Jonathan Tyler, to his house in Austin in like 2 days, and we were going to record some demos. And we were leaving the show, and we have this rule, and I'll tell you, but whoever else hears this, but we have a rule that it has to be.
Maybe, hopefully, a few people are going to hear it.
Yeah, you have to be 2 miles down the road and windows up before you say anything, you know? And,
okay.
But we were sitting outside, and we were getting in the van, and there was just beautiful women everywhere, and we were all joking around just like dudes do. And we were saying, these, there's beautiful ladies, but they don't want babies, you know? It was totally just being funny. And I was like, that is fantastic. And that song really kind of turned a corner for me when I figured that out. It like flipped a switch inside of me. And we went and recorded it with John, and he helped us figure it out. And I wrote the second verse on the way to John's. And then we did a demo, and then it was like a month or two later, we were in Ohio playing a taco joint, making hardly any money. And there were some people there to see us, and I remember playing Goodbye L.A., and after the song was done, somebody yelled out, "Sell out," you know? And it made me laugh so hard. Like, I was just like, it kind of kicked me in gear to be like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever I want, you know? And that's kind of where this record came from, is just on that feeling of like, you know what? I'm never going to make anybody happy, so I'm just going to do what I want, you know? But it kind of opened a door. It opened the door for the rest of the record, and it opened a door for me personally, you know?
Back home it's raining, out here is sun. She hates when I'm leaving, it tells me that she's done. But I got this feeling, and I don't know what to say when I have to go. And she wants me to stay. Hello, LA, you got some pretty ladies, but they don't want babies, and I do. Goodbye, LA, I'm going home to see my baby. She's the one I belong to.
You talked about Billy Joe Shaver a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about what you think makes a good song, what quality songwriting is to you, or maybe some other songwriters that you have been influenced by?
I've been recently listening to Guy Clark a lot, and
There you go.
yeah, I mean, and then, you know, I've been listening to some Howlin' Wolf, and I like the honesty in blues music. I like the poetry and Guy Clark's stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many good songwriters, you know. It's a lot of those Texas guys really had something going on, man. You know.
Sure did.
You listen to Redheaded Stranger, and it might be the ideal like album that everybody wishes they did, you know.
Yep.
So, I mean, I love that record, and I love Willie Nelson. So,
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, I appreciate you taking this time. I'm going to let you go in a few minutes. I want to ask you one kind of maybe big picture question. As you look back on your career, songwriter, musician, is there something or some things you think you've gotten better at over time, or maybe something you're trying to get better at now?
I feel like I'm really green, and I'm just kind of scratching the surface, or maybe like just starting to figure out that it's not a big deal. Like, things aren't a big deal. And just to try to enjoy letting go a little bit and just playing music. Because you can get a lot, like, you can get from outside sources, you can get kind of beat down a little bit. But
Yeah.
I just the load feels a little bit lighter, you know?
Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks again so much for taking this time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think this new record is really great. I think it's going to get some great attention. Congratulations in advance. And we'll all be looking for you out on the road sometime soon.
All right, I
and I'll be
appreciate it.
dancing.
All right, yeah. I'm excited to see that. Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Just a little drink of water.